Fala galera, my name is Paulo and today I'm gonna talk about a little bit about two cards that are being played a lot on Snake Eyes. Rank 1s, the Lyrilusc Nightingale and Kikinagashi Fuku, we call that Fuku usually. I will talk a little bit about those two cards because I've been seeing a lot of players playing those to counter Tenpai. Usually people tend to play that either already in their main extra deck or in the side deck just when they know they're playing against Tenpai. And I feel like it's not the best option, even if you know you're playing against Tenpai. My main argument against those cards are the opportunity costs that you need to give up when you're doing that instead of something. Every time you evaluate a card and the decision, a play, a side deck card, like pretty much anything you need to compare with what you're missing. In this case, with those two ranked ones, every time you have the intention to make and you do make it, you pretty much giving up on something else. The something else sometimes is a Mascarina, sometimes it's a Palooza, sometimes it's the Atlantis, and on the end board that usually Snake Eyes do. In my opinion, what you're giving up is not worth what you're getting. Yes, I'm aware that those two cards usually prevent you from dying, but that doesn't matter if you don't have good plays moving forward. Usually what happens in my experience when I test those cards is that you get out of your way to make them, usually giving up on something. And when that happens, the game state gets really weird and they can't kill you, but it's not like the Tenpai deck. It's unable to do something. Usually they can banish your Graveyard Rolls or they can clear everything else. In case of Focus specifically, sometimes you die anyway because if you trigger Flumberge and summon a bunch of monsters, they can put everything in attack with the Synchro 10 and attack everything and you'd still die. So it's pretty weird, especially for Fuku. I feel like between the two, if I was to choose, I'm not playing any of them, but if I was to choose one of them, would be the Nightingale, even though I know it's weak to droplets and Chalice. Usually droplets the one that they play the most. Even then, I feel like it's not worth it because of the opportunity cost of doing something else instead. I feel like one of the best ways to beat Tenpai, it's one, know exactly how to interact, especially in battle phase. I'm talking here more about game ones where you have like not so optimal cards like Mourner and Bell if you play, things like that where you can use inside battle phase, Ogre sometimes, depending if they use field spell and not add, and try to use your interruptions inside the battle phase in order for you to not die. But usually you do that in the process of getting follow-up. The problem is that many times, Princess as well is another card that you need to use really timely, especially in the battle phase. Usually those cards are perceived by the players as bad, and I don't think they're as bad as people believe. They're of course not impactful like an Ash Blossom or Ghost Ogre when they use the field spell, but they're not that bad. I feel like one of the weakest ones would be in Perm because it's settable and they usually play a lot of backward removal, but the other ones are fine. Usually the best approach would be involving Zealantis. I really like having Zealantis on my end board when I know I'm playing against Tenpai because one, my play is still normal, and I feel like having Zealantis is better than Appaloosa because usually if you're playing a hand trap Snake Eye deck, you have a lot of hand traps anyway. Most of your hand traps are effect negates. So when you have Appaloosa and effect negates against Tenpai, and we need to take context here in consideration, I feel like it's better to have something that do something else different, like a Zealantis, that make them enter in the battle phase awkward. They need to deal with it. And the same cards that deal with Appaloosa also deal with Zealantis. It's the same, right? Like they have a Droplet, for example. It deals with both. It's the same thing because they are forced to negate both of them. Zealantis and Appaloosa. The difference is when they don't have, and when they don't have it, it's much better for you to have something that does something different than the card that you already have. And usually, if you want to make a Nightingale, for example, probably giving up on this Atlantis, sometimes you're giving up on Flam, on board, sometimes you're afraid of making Flam because you can die, especially if you make Fuku instead. So there are problems with that. And then there's the argument that you might thinking, right? Because I didn't say that yet, which is, oh, what if they shifter? What if they shifter? So there's two ways to think about shifter here. One is when they shifter you on the draw phase. When that happens, they usually do that to play around talents. And when that happens, you could do the rank 1. And I feel like this is the best case scenario for the rank 1, okay? And I would even say that it's better to have it than not. The problem is, and what you're not doing, right? Let's say you don't have the rank 1 here. What would you do? You probably would do an IP play, right? Probably make Snake Eye Ash into Poplar, into Field Spell, put probably another Snake Ash behind, because you're undershifted, you don't want to banish your Oak, and you have SP twice in their turn. That's usually what would you do if you don't have the rank 1 here. So that's the best case scenario for the rank 1s. But I feel like if you're playing against a more experienced Tenpai player, and they know that most Snake Eyes, because they are playing this either in the main or the side deck, they can wait a little bit. Usually what happens, they can wait until you have Flamberge and Pop on board. A really common way to play would be like Snake Eye Ash, Poplar, Field Spell, put something behind, go Snake Eye Ash, effect, send something that was behind, and some of Flamberge. Here, they can shift there. If they shift there here, you don't have a way into rank 1 anymore. And then it's awkward, pretty awkward. So if you're playing against a more experienced player, I feel like this is what ended up happening, and then it's not that great. Of course, they play into talents if they do that, so it's a choice that they made. But talents is something that you need to draw. The rank 1s is something that you don't need to draw. So I feel like a lot of the most experienced player will do that, and then it's worse for you. And that's why I believe those cards are not necessary. Also, there's a clear concession that you're making. You're playing this card instead of something else. Every time you evaluate a card, you need to think like that. This is how I do it. You need to compare what you would be playing instead. And usually, these correlations that are not direct. It's not like the card that you play instead. It's something that you would do instead. You need to compare apples and oranges. That's the beauty of the game. You need to compare things that are not really comparable. It's more deciding what is more important in different scenarios because the cards are not equal. For example, if you're playing Nightingale, you're probably not playing a side deck card. And that side deck card is not even a card against the pie. It's something completely different that would improve your other matchup in another completely different manner. Or if you're already playing the main deck, extra deck, right? You already have that in your extra deck directly. You would be playing a different card. You could be playing, I don't know, Access Code, as some people cut it, or I don't know, Link Spider, which is something that I played. There are many other cards that you could play instead here that would improve your deck in a different aspect, not necessarily against the Pie. So you need to compare those two and see what you think is the best. So yeah, that's my 2 cents about the rank 1s. I don't think they're necessary. They're really popular. So yeah, that's it. If you guys like this type of content, let me know, and bye.